Mascot horror is one of my favorite genres, Five Nights at Freddy's being the first ever fandom I joined. But I look at some of these games today and I wonder, is there even a future for mascot horror? I'm a firm believer that when you want to look forward towards what's coming next, you gotta look back at what made something good in the first place. Let's go all the way back to the beginning to Slender, what I would consider the first mascot horror game ever. What made Slender good was its air of mystery. It was something that you could go talk to your friends about and try to figure out what was going on, but you probably wouldn't because there weren't a lot of details. What did the notes mean? What was Slender doing? Why the static? It was just fun to theorize about. And I think that's something that goes forward into all of these mascot horror games. An air of mystery, something to get MatPat on the horn for.
MatPat's gonna have a lot of fun tearing apart this next episode.
From there you go to what would be probably my favorite is Five Nights at Freddy's. It needs no introduction. It's just such a good first game. It creates atmosphere. It gives you the most simple story. Oh, simple. But really, old school Five Nights at Freddy's, specifically 1 and 2, were all about this simple story about some kids getting killed and stuffed in suits. You even had secret characters, and this was the birthplace of things like hoaxes, where you had Sparky the dog and other fake animatronics, like that weird purple guy one that was just a rip of Golden Freddy or something. They always created this sense of mystery. Were they real? Were they not? Because, I mean, nobody believed in Golden Freddy until Mr. Bite of 87 himself saw him. I mean, who knew that this simple game made by a dude working a dead-end job would become one of the biggest horror franchises of all time? From Five Nights at Freddy's, we can really learn that atmosphere and that mystery, once again, are crucial to any mascot horror game. Going forward, we have Bendy and the Ink Machine, which was releasing around the same time as other Five Nights at Freddy's game, but it had its own unique twist. It was artistic. It looked unique. And most importantly, for the future of mascot horror, it released in chapters. This chapter system is focused on making and releasing small chunks of the game until eventually you have a full game. This allows the developers to spend some time working on these chunks in between, also making sure that for smaller developers, they can make money and be rest assured that they aren't going to be wasting multiple years of their life for a game that ultimately won't do that well. Games going forward would use this a lot, like Poppy Playtime, Garten of Banban, and Indigo Park. Of course, this does bring its problems, but we'll get to that when we start talking a little bit more about why mascot horror is failing at the moment. Poppy Playtime is probably the most recent example of a genre-defining game for mascot horror. It set up all of the core elements that a lot of games are using in their mascot horror games. Things like creepy abandoned facilities, giant brandable mascots, and merchandise.
Yeah, baby, merch, baby, let's go!
I think that brings us to the problem we have today. Mascot horror has almost become synonymous with either being money-hungry or just boring. Poppy Playtime's adding of themes and ideas ended up kind of creating this sense of monotony. Every game feels the same. I mean, take a look at Joyville, a game that, while unique, in my opinion, has one flaw, that its main villain looks almost identical to Huggy Wuggy. Because of that, it's never gonna escape the idea that it's just a Poppy Playtime clone. It has no visual identity of its own. But who could forget the biggest offender of everybody's problems with mascot horror right now? Garten of Banban. This game, I think, has a large fan base for a couple reasons. One, it is genuinely really funny to play through and watch people play through because of just how poorly it's made. I think the Euphoric Brothers probably know this now, and they've started making some jokes about it. Or at least the games seem really ironic in nature. Heck, they even have Markiplier himself saying that he unironically loves the games. But there's no doubt that that game makes buckets of money for what seems like no effort, which makes a lot of other people think that they can do similar things. You have knockoffs, you have the almost Elsa Gate-like nature of what YouTube has done to some of these characters. It's becoming more and more apparent that these mascot horror games aren't meant for fans of horror, maybe, and are more being geared towards children that might buy their toys. Or at least that's a really cynical way to look at it. I mean, look at things like Candyland. Candyland was a project that was meant to sell NFTs, and they just recently announced they're making a video game. Whether or not the video game is good, let's be honest, it's there for one reason: to make money. I mean, why else would video games like Poppy Playtime and Ban have their merch store plastered on their title screen? Five Nights at Freddy's is another great example of this. They released Security Breach, which was marketed as the biggest Five Nights at Freddy's game ever, and, well, the reception to it wasn't great. Me personally, I loved it. It's the first Five Nights at Freddy's game that I purposely went through and tried to get every single ending. But just because my opinion is that it's great doesn't mean that that's everybody's opinion. And you can't deny that when it came out, it was a buggy, horrific mess, as well as it changes the entire tone of Five Nights at Freddy's as a whole. Suddenly, it wasn't a dilapidated pizzeria, it was this massive, brightly lit mall. It's becoming more and more obvious that the tone of Mascot Horror is kid-friendly. Not that it wasn't before, it just is becoming much more kid-friendly, at least at a surface level. So what is there to look forward to? If these are all of the problems, if everything is going more and more PG, then is there any hope? Do people actually even like these franchises, these games? I'd argue yes.
The Five Nights at Freddy's movie came out last year, and it did really well. So much so they're making a second one.
Maybe it's just because there's an audience of people clamoring to see, oh, purple guy, Freddy Fazbear. And honestly, after seeing it myself, it definitely has some flaws, but one thing can't be denied, people are still enjoying it. Sure, the critics gave it a horrible score, but when you look at the thousands of audience reviews that give it glowing scores, it's impossible to deny that people are still a fan of these series.
Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 released this year, and it got tons of praise.
And something else with Chapter 3?
It was one of their darkest yet.
I mean, look at any of the teasers. These are definitely not the same general vibe as Chapter 1. Something else that released that definitely helped was Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin. Sure, it was only a couple hours, but general fans of Five Nights at Freddy's have rated it as one of their favorite games of all time. I played through it and I had a great time with it as well. It definitely leaned more into that darker atmosphere, with the entire Pizzaplex now being completely, well, ruined. It's abundantly clear that there's so much in store for the future of Mascot Horror. There's so many things to look forward to in the months and years to come. Heck, look at Indigo Park.
Indigo Park is an up-and-coming Mascot Horror franchise made by YouTuber Unique Geese. When I played it, Chapter 1 was amazing.
This is the same guy who managed to recreate Ban Chapter 1 and make it actually kind of creepy. It has some amazing promise. And the raccoon character is there, so I'm on board. Despite its troubled past, we actually have some amazing looking games coming from the Fanverse initiative for FNAF. We have Pop Goes, we got Five Nights at Candy's, we got Joy of Creation. I mean, genuinely, I'm excited for these. Fan games are always coming out and always innovating even more.
One of my favorite examples would be A Bite at Freddy's,
which is one of the most creative designs I've ever seen for any of the Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics. There are so many creative and wonderful games out there. My Friendly Neighborhood, Amanda the Adventurer. There's just no doubt in my mind that people are out there to make the best games ever. And sure, you could take the cynical view and say that Mascot Horror is dead, but it's not. There's so many things to look forward to discover, to maybe even make yourself. People on Twitter will always yap about what they think is bad with the industry nowadays. They'll say why a movie's bad, why games are bad. I say screw them. That doesn't have to stop you from enjoying the things that you like. That doesn't have to stop you from creating the things that you like. People are gonna enjoy what they're gonna enjoy, even if that's Garten of Ban. And I say, let them. You should be excited for what you get excited about. And honestly, I'm excited for the future of Mascot Horror.